Okay, so seems majority I don't have much idea about PowerPoint. So let me share my screen and I'll be showing you a video and time to time I'll be explaining more details with that. So let me share my screen.
In this video tutorial, we're going to look at how to get started using Microsoft PowerPoint in the classroom. And this is basically the beginner's guide to using PowerPoint. So if you've never used PowerPoint, or if you've maybe used it a little bit, but been kind of intimidated by it, this is the video for you. Let's get started using PowerPoint. I'm just going to go down here and I've got it pinned to the taskbar down here. And you can see that this is PowerPoint 2016. I'm just going to go ahead and click on it to open it up. Now, even though this is PowerPoint 2016,
This is how to open the PowerPoint. I hope PowerPoint
functionality will still work in older versions of PowerPoint, going back all the way to about 2007. So if your version of PowerPoint is 2007 or newer, you're good to go with this tutorial. Now, what if you have a future version of PowerPoint that comes out maybe in 2018 or whatever? Same thing applies. This video will probably still be very applicable to you and your version of PowerPoint. And that's also true of Mac. If you have PowerPoint on the Mac, it's going to be a little different, but I still hope that you'll enjoy watching this presentation and that it'll be applicable to you. So as you can tell, PowerPoint has loaded up. And at this point, I can do one of a couple of different things. I could simply click where it says blank presentation and get started.
So there are many ways to start. When you click PowerPoint, either you can go with a blank presentation, or else here there's a search option, so you can search if you need any kind of a specific PowerPoint, or else you can go with a slide which look like this. So you can pick a template like this.
Different things. I could simply click where it says blank presentation and get started using PowerPoint. And most often that's what I do. That's the most common option, at least for me. But if I prefer, I could go over here and select one of these different templates or styles, and it will get the template details. And then if I like it, I can choose to create a presentation in that style. And so that's another option that you do have, is to pick one of these pre-made templates, is really what they are, templates. So I could pick one of those, create it, and begin making a PowerPoint. Another thing you can do is go up to the top here and click search for online templates and themes. So I could click there and do a search for, let's say, a business presentation. And it's looking online to see if there are any PowerPoint templates or themes that might fit that description of business presentation. And as you can see, it found several results, and I could go ahead and click. Let's say I like this one. I could click to create a presentation based on that template. So it's definitely worth looking through these results, searching here, and looking at the templates that are available here. But like I said, more often than not, I just open up PowerPoint and I click blank presentation. That opens up PowerPoint. And let's take a minute to talk about the layout that we have to work with here. And there's some terminology that you'll need to know. First, we have tabs across the top. Each of these is a tab. And when you click on a tab, it gives you a series of tools on something that they call the ribbon. Okay, so I click the Home tab, it gives me the Home ribbon, and I get a whole bunch of these tools. Now, these tools are organized and grouped together in groups. So we have a slides group, we have a clipboard group, a font group, a paragraph group. If I click on the Design tab, I get a themes group, a variants group, and a customized group, and so forth. And so it's important to know that terminology. Now, a few of these groups also have a little button called the launch button. And the purpose of the launch button is this. Microsoft has tried to put all of the options for fonts, for example, here in this group, but there are too many options to fit. They just don't fit in the space available. And so if you click in a text area and then click on that launch button, it launches additional options that you can use that couldn't fit in such a small space here. And so that's the purpose of the launch button. So to review, we have tabs. Each tab gives us a ribbon. The ribbon is made up of groups, and some of the groups have launch buttons. Okay, that's enough talk about the...
That's a very basic explanation about the ribbon and the groups, and let's see how to work with those.
The layout of PowerPoint itself. But now let's look at the components of my actual presentation. Here we have on the screen a slide. This is slide number 1. And this is where I can do the editing for this slide. On the left side of the screen, I have a little thumbnail of the same slide. So this small rectangle represents this larger slide. And to begin creating my PowerPoint, it's as simple as clicking here where it says double tap to add title. Now, that sounds like it's talking about a tablet, but I'm on a laptop here, so it's kind of funny that it says it that way. In your version of PowerPoint, it probably will just say click to add title. So don't be thrown off by that. So I'll just click there and add the title of my presentation, which is going to be the parts of speech. Okay, so I just type that right in, and then I can click here to add a subtitle. And this could be my name, it could be the class that this is part of, or it could be something else. In this case, I just need a second title. So the parts of speech, a review. So I am basically done now with slide number 1. The downside.
So here you can use the heading and the subheading, and also when you click heading, you can increase the font size. When you go here, you can choose different fonts and the font sizes just like Word.
Though is this slide looks kind of plain. Okay, it's just black and white, mostly white, and that just doesn't look that great. So in order to remedy that situation, I'm just going to go up here where it says design, and I click, and there's a bunch of design themes that I can choose from. Now, these themes, it looks like there's 7 of them, 7 or 8, but I can click here on this arrow, and that gives me many, many more to choose from. Now, if this still isn't enough, remember that back on that first screen when I open up PowerPoint, there were options to look online to get additional themes. So don't worry if you think that this is not enough themes. There's so many more that I can get online and use in PowerPoint. All right, I'm going to go with this one here, but there's so many different nice themes to choose from. And as you can see, when you put your mouse over them, you get a preview of what they would look like. And so it's really handy and nice to be able to just get a sense of what your presentation would look like with different themes.
So as he explained, you can select a design from the design tab, but when you select, make sure that it's appropriate for your presentation, and don't select designs which are not suitable, and also there are some designs which are difficult to see when you present because of the colors. So make sure that you are selecting a relevant design when you're presenting.
I'm going to stick with this one called Slice. So I click on it and it's applied to this slide. Great. So I am done with slide 1. Now I want to create slide number 2. But how do I do that? Well, there's a couple of different ways. First, I could go to the Home button and go to the Home ribbon. And what Microsoft has done is they've put all of the most commonly used and needed features here on the Home ribbon. So when you click Home, you're getting the most common features, the best stuff that's used the most. And that's where I'll find New Slide. So I click New Slide and it gives me a slide number 2. Now you'll notice a difference between slide 2 and slide 1. Slide 1 is set up to be the title slide of this presentation. And so the text is specifically placed in a different area of the screen to show that this is special. This is the opening slide, the title slide. But I'm going to go back to slide number 2 and you can see it's different. Okay, so I will click to add my title. And you know what? I'm noticing this is kind of a funny layout. I was not expecting this, but the title is at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so let's say I want to focus on nouns. I can just type the nouns and my title is at the bottom. To be honest, this is just a little bit too radical for me. So in just a minute, I'm going to change it up. But for now, I'm just clicking to put in the content. In addition to this title of this slide, I'll just put in person, place, thing. Sometimes people say idea is a separate category for nouns. So I guess I'll throw that in too. So there we go. I'm done with this second slide. But to be honest, this is too much for me. I'm not used to having the title of the individual slide at the bottom of the screen. So I'm just going to have to go back up to design and I'm going to have to pick a different design theme. Maybe this one. But isn't that nice that you can change your mind at any time in the creation process? And even after you've used the presentation with a class, if you decide, no, that didn't quite work the way I was hoping, just go in, choose a different theme, and it reorders everything. Notice that my text moved, the fonts all changed, and it was done very easily. So I like the look of that a little bit better. I guess I'm a traditionalist. Okay, so that is one way to...
So in that way, you can add make your presentation, add words, headings and subheadings, and you can change the design at any time. And when you make those presentations, make sure when you add these wordings, make sure that it is visible to the audience. So as an example, for this subject, most probably you will have to do a physical presentation. So make sure if you're using PowerPoint, make sure your slides are visible to the corner area in the audience. So if not, adjust those fonts accordingly to make sure even the last person at the corner can read your slides.
To add another slide, you just go to the Home tab, Home ribbon, in the Slides group, you click New Slide. Now, some of these buttons, especially the larger buttons in PowerPoint, will have two parts to the button. They don't all have it, but many do. The top part is just a simple one-click option. If I click here, I'll get a new slide. But the bottom part, if you click, gives you additional options. So watch for that. Sometimes the additional options are pretty exciting. So for example, if I just click new slide, it gives me a generic blank new slide. But if I go here to the bottom part of the button, I click and I can get a slide that's good for comparison. It's got 2 sections and I can compare and contrast these 2 items. Here's an option for picture with a caption. Here's an option for a 3-picture column. So some nice options here that I might otherwise miss if I hadn't clicked on the bottom part of the big button. So watch for that. Now, I do want to show you another way to add a new slide to my presentation. And to be honest, this is what I do more often than not. I typically don't go up to the top of the screen and click here on new slide. Instead, I just go here, right click, and choose new slide. And so for me, that's a short cut. It's easier for me just because I don't have to go all the way up here. I know I'm kind of lazy that way, but that's what I prefer. Just right clicking and choosing new slide. Okay, now I've got too many slides, so I'm just going to delete using delete on the keyboard, or you can also right click and choose delete. Way too many people use way too many words in their PowerPoint presentations, and that's why PowerPoint gets a bad name. It's not anything that Microsoft or that PowerPoint has done that's wrong. It's the people that are using PowerPoint. I know I shouldn't say that to my audience, but it's true. We can use PowerPoint effectively. It's meant to be a visual tool. But if all we do is put text on the slides, and especially put lots of text, it'll drive people crazy, and you're missing out on the potential power of PowerPoint. So let's look at how to add some visual elements to this, in addition to the theme, the background that's here. Well, what I would do to add some visuals is click here on Insert. And when I do that, it gives me a bunch of different things I can insert. In this session, I'm going to focus just on a few of these. And let's focus right now on images. So I can go here in the Images group, and I'm going to click on Pictures. So Insert Picture. And from here, I'm going to just quickly here jump to photos, and I'm going to find a few photos to add. Okay, so here's one, a nice cheerful image to choose here, I know. But anyway, this is an example of a thing, right? Not necessarily a person anymore. So I'm going to stash that there. And because this photo was on my computer, it was easy for me to click Insert Pictures and find it and upload it. But I don't know if I have a picture of a famous person on my computer or of a place or an idea. I don't know if I've got that. Well, look, here in the Images group, there is an option for online pictures, and this is really good. Just click that, and Microsoft will open up a portal, basic search, which makes sense, being Microsoft PowerPoint. So I'm going to do a search for a famous person. So the lead singer of U2. So I select that image, I click Insert, and that image is added to my presentation. Isn't that nice? And I can do the same to find an example of a place. I'll just do a search for Florida. And you'll notice that things are loading faster now. The first time that you insert an online picture, it may be a little delayed. So don't be discouraged if that first time it's kind of slow. So here's a nice picture of Florida that I'd like to use. So I just clicked on it to select it, and I click Insert, and it pulls that image into my presentation. Now you probably noticed that I'm resizing these images just by clicking on the corner. You'll notice that there are handles, and that's what they're called. That's the official term. And each of these handles will change the image in some way. So you can see that one distorted it. And so I want to actually undo that change. Up here in the upper left corner, there is an undo button. So I can click that to undo, and that's fixed the mistake that I made. There is also a redo button that will appear only after you undo something. All right, so there's my image. I'm going to make it a little smaller again. And then you may notice that some of these images, actually all of them, I believe, when you click on them, get this arrow, this circular arrow at the top. When you click on that circular arrow, it gives you the ability to very easily rotate the image so that you can tilt it if you'd like to. So I've got a person, I've got a place, I've got a thing. What about an idea? So I'll click to add an idea. How about love? Now, I would argue that this is still a thing, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and add that anyway. So now I've got these 4 images, one for person, one for place, one for thing, and one for an idea. So let's try out this presentation so far. I'm going to click back to slide number 1, and I'll go down to the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to click here where it has this slideshow symbol, and I'll click, and it starts my slideshow. So the parts of speech, a review. Remember, this is my title slide. I want to advance now to the first real content slide. To do that, I just tap on the keyboard, and I like to tap the right arrow on the keyboard. So you just tap that and it advances the slide. The left arrow reverses and goes back 1 slide at a time. You can also use the down arrow and the up arrow to do the same thing, but I prefer the right arrow and the left. Some people actually prefer spacebar. If you tap spacebar, it advances the slide, which is nice because the spacebar is a big button. You can also hit enter. So there's several different ways that you can advance this slide. For most teachers, presenters, and business people, most of us end up getting a presenter remote, which is kind of a nice thing. If you're interested in a presenter remote, I'll put a link in the description below for the best presenter remote I've ever used. It's really amazing. I'll also put some links to some cheaper ones that I've used and have had great success with. So check those out. It really is a nice addition to a teacher's tech tools, and especially to the use of PowerPoint and also other presentation tools. So I'm liking this presentation so far. I think it looks great, but it's got some issues. And the main thing for me is, how do I display these pictures in a way that's not so cluttered, that makes more sense with the text on the screen? So I'm going to get out of presentation mode by tapping escape on the keyboard in the upper left corner. That gets me out and back into editing mode. Here in editing mode, let's see what I can do. First off, it might be a good idea to separate these words so that they're spaced a little further apart. So to do that, I can just click after person, hit enter, and notice it wants another bullet there. But if I hit enter again, then it doesn't. And I can also hit backspace or delete to remove the dot. So I'm going to do that a couple times. I'll probably run out of room. And I did run out of room. So did you see what happened? The font of the words got smaller. Now, one thing to remedy that, if I wanted to, I could stretch out the text box. The space available to me gets bigger, and so the words are able to be bigger. Now, with that, I have a lot more space to work with. It still may not be enough to make it so that everything will fit with the pictures and everything, but it is an improvement. And so now I can shrink down the images a little more and just make it a little more likely. Okay, and you saw there how my skeleton flipped sides. I just clicked and dragged so far to the left that he flipped. So anyway, that's a lot better. I still feel like I'm cramped for space, but at least that's better. Now, an alternative option would be to just put person and U2's lead singer together, and then I could insert a text box, click, and type the word place. Okay, so basically, I don't have to stick to having text just here at the left. I can match it up so that there's text directly with the pictures that I choose. In this case, though, I'm fine with having everything mostly at the left of the screen. So there's the person, there's the place, there's the thing, and there's the idea. So that fits fairly well. Okay, the other thing I can do to spice this up and to make it so that it's less cluttered, I guess, is I can add some animation. And to do that, you're going to want to go here to the Animations tab. That brings up the Animations ribbon, and I can start to animate these items on the screen. Now you'll notice most of these options are grayed out, but here's a good option, Animation Pane. If I click on that, a panel opens up on the side, and that's going to come in handy as we get started. Okay, if I want these things to be active so that I can use them, what I need to do is click. Click on something, whether it's text or whether it's picture or whatever it might be. So I'm going to click here on our person, and now notice what I can do. I can choose an animation style. Okay, and there are lots of these. And one thing that beginners to PowerPoint are tempted to do is to try out every single one of these. Okay, I can make these pictures swivel in and swing in. I can have them zoom in, grow and turn, and some of these are...
So far we have learned about how to add text, add images, and now we are learning about how to use animations to get some attention for your PowerPoint.
just awesome. They look great. But to be honest with you, more often than not, the best option is just appear or fade or something a little more subtle so that it doesn't distract and detract from your main points. I'm going to go with appear. So now this image will be animated. Next up, I'll click on the second image and choose appear for that one, and the same for each of the other images. Okay, so let's go back and try the whole presentation and see what it looks like. There's my title slide. There's my first content slide. Person, place, thing, idea. Every time I tap to advance the presentation, one of the pictures is animated and brought into the scene. I'm going to click escape. All right, so I want to also point out with animations, in addition to just adding the kind of animation, when you've got a certain animation selected, you can look up here and you can see some options for it. So this animation will happen on a click. So when I click or when I tap to advance the slide, that's when the picture gets animated. If I want to change that, I could make it animate with previous or after previous. Now there is nothing previous to this. So I'm going to go down here to my second animation and I'm going to change it from on click to with previous, just so you can see what that does. You can also put in some delays, which is kind of interesting. And in a future, more advanced video, maybe in the intermediate or one of the advanced ones that I'll make, I'll show you how that can be really useful and helpful to put in delays from time to time. So let me try it again. I'm just going to go down, click the Start Presentation button. So now I press and they're both animated at the same time. Why? Because I selected the animation for this second image and told it to animate with the previous animation. So at this point, you really do know everything you need to know to get started using PowerPoint. You know how the screen is laid out. You know how to choose a design theme. You know how to click to add text to the slides. You know how to insert images, whether from your computer or from online pictures. You know how to add animations to your presentations. And I also threw in a couple of other items like inserting text boxes and how to use the undo button. And of course, we also learned how to add new slides to a presentation. So at this point, I could just continue to click and create slide after slide. I could just continue to click to add titles for the slides. So the verbs, click to add content, and I could just continue to develop this nice presentation. When I am completely finished, what do I need to do? I need to go here to File. Okay, and File looks like a tab, just like all the rest of these tabs. But it's actually a little different. When you click on File, it doesn't open up a ribbon. It takes you to this screen with a panel at the left. It gives you some options for protecting the presentation if you want to. I don't ever do this, but it might make sense for you to look into that. It gives you some properties of your presentation, but for the most part, this is what you're looking for. You go to the File option in order to save what you've been working on, or maybe to open a presentation that you've made in the past. So I'm going to go down and click Save, and I can save to just this computer if I want to, or I could save to my OneDrive account. If you're not familiar with OneDrive, and if you're using PowerPoint, you've got to become familiar with OneDrive. It's a great tool and it integrates well with Microsoft Office, including PowerPoint. And so please watch my tutorials that I've made on OneDrive. I have one for Windows and one for Mac, and you've got to check that out. In this case though, I'm just going to save to this PC. So I double clicked on that and it opened up with some options. I can save it here in Documents and I'll call it the parts of speech. PowerPoint automatically put that title in for me and I'll click Save, and that's now saved to my documents on my computer. So now when I close PowerPoint, that presentation is already saved. In the future, I can just click PowerPoint to open it up and look, there's a list of recent documents that I have made or opened on my computer. I do want you to see that there's a little push pin here. If you click on that push pin, it will pin this document at the top of the list. So if this is a particularly important presentation that I'll need over and over and that maybe I'll continue to work on, I usually like to pin it so that I can easily find it again. And now also when I click on File and click Open, there it is and it's pinned. I can also pin or unpin from the File menu also. So I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation on PowerPoint 2016, and please consider connecting with me on some of my social media websites like Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. And please do subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos.
So I hope you all have a better understanding about how to use PowerPoint in your presentation and how to add images, how to add slides, how to add words, and how to save it. So are there any questions? No questions means hope now you all have a much better idea and hope we can see some amazing presentations in the future. So with that, it's important to uh, learn about uh, things you do presentation, which means the difference between a bad presentation and a good presentation. So let me share some common examples which students use uh, and how they can make their presentations better. So let me share my screen again. These are some of the examples for bad presentation with a PowerPoint. When you're presenting something, you don't take many items with you. Maybe you just need your laptop or some notes if you have, and don't bring many more things when you're presenting something. So this is very important, and be aware about your clothes. Wear formal clothes because that is something uh, which is which gives an idea about your personality, and also uh, audience may start to judge you. So make sure you don't trap with those. And also when you wear formal clothes, you will feel confident as well. So Don't wear informal clothes. Make sure you are wearing the best costumes you have.
Marketing is
When you're presenting, don't turn back to the audience and don't read word to word. Most of the presenters do this mistake and they use long paragraphs and they start to read the presentation, and that's not presenting actually. You always need to look at your audience to keep that eye contact, and this PowerPoint is something which gives you help to show something. So that's the whole purpose of using PowerPoint. And then you need to be confident and not to rely with your slides.
activity for institutions and process for creating.
That was the same one which I explained. Do not stand with your back to the audience. Make sure your face is visible.
For institutions and process for creating.
As I mentioned, don't present paragraphs, so keep your slides short and clear. So it's easy for the audience to read and understand as well.
Most girls say,
Can you call me back? I'm having a presentation right now. Yeah.
Put your phones in silent mode and don't use those when you're presenting.
Have the value for customers, clients, partners, and
So as we learned, don't speak with a monotonous voice, which means the same voice throughout your presentation, and use your vocal variations accordingly. Change your pace, which means the speed, and you can emphasize with a loud voice uh, or a low voice, and you can bring some emotions with you if there's anything. So use those techniques which we use under vocal variations.
society at large.
As I teach you, be aware about your hands and the body language. Use appropriate gestures to emphasize, and don't keep your hands like this, or don't keep your hands in your pockets. So be aware about yourselves when you're presenting.
Values for customer. Writing does not mean task or mission content.
Also, some people use their notes and try to read them in front of the audience. That's why you need to prepare for a presentation, and you need to rehearse for presentation. So when you prepare and rehearse, you will be able to speak without using notes.
Point to lack.
So these are some examples for a good presentation. So this student has dressed formally and he looks like professional. If you want, you can use handles. So I use a clear text and diagrams for the slides. Though we can't see this presentation well because since it was recorded, we can see he has used this. He has prepared this presentation with some large fonts, and it's clear, and those are not like paragraphs. So it should be clear for the audience to read those. So, keep your energy throughout your presentation and with a smile. So audience will feel that you are not nervous. So you can see his body language and how he is pointing out things. So make sure you also have that kind of body language with you. So that's about the good presentation and the bad presentation. And also you should know how to prepare for presentation. So let's have a look about that as well. it's important to know how to yourself for the upcoming presentation. So let me share my screen once again.
Coming presentation is going to help you tighten up your content and refine your delivery skills. But people don't practice. They say to themselves, it takes too long. I don't have enough time. Going over it in my head is going to be good enough. It stresses me. Rehearsing aloud is going to make me sound canned. Don't overcomplicate things. Practice is not only simple, it's essential. Hi,
So that's a really important point. Practicing is very important before you are going to present. So if I ask from you, just a question, how many times you should practice before doing a presentation? As you think? Any answers? About the number of times? Any idea about the number of times? Or you can...
My name is Michael, and I'm with Lighthouse Communication.
You can just answer. Maybe you are preparing for the first assessment. How many times did you practice? Is it 0 or is it 1? Or 2 times? 3 times? If I ask that question in a different way, how to make sure that we are ready to present? So how many times we need to rehearse? Do we need to rehearse? Do we need to practice? You can unmute and speak. Yes, someone unmuted to say something. Any answer? Because it's important to answer for this question due to two reasons. One is you are at a presentation skills course, so you need to know how to present yourself. And the second thing is whether you like or not, to pass this exam, you have to uh, do some presentations with assignments, and to get the maximum marks, you need to use these techniques, and more importantly, you need to practice and rehearse. So uh, it's important for you to know about how many times you should practice as you think. So it may be correct or wrong, just looking forward to hear some answers from you all. If there's no any answer, so you think how many times you need to rehearse, and let's continue with this video.
Communications. In today's video, 5 tips for how to practice your upcoming presentation. Tip number 1, practice loud. Start by saying what you've written so far so you can start to hear how it sounds. The more times you say it aloud, the more familiar you're going to become with the content. Keep this in mind. If you get frustrated because you think you need to stick to the script, memorizing a script word for word is a strategy that's best used for high-stakes presentations like a TED Talk or a video presentation. You can consult the script 3 or 4 times, but after that, you've just got to move on. If you find yourself sounding canned during practice, this is what experienced speakers call the awkward valley. When you push through to the 6th or 7th round, that's when you're going to start to sound authentic. It's because the content in your presentation is moving from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. Tip number 2, test out content with friends, family, and colleagues. Now, they're not going to want to hear your entire presentation, most likely, and they could get lost during the part where you explain the snippet of code or the bar chart. But the story or analogy that you use to explain the higher level concept or the denser, more technical information, that will interest people. The next time you are going for a walk with family or you're at dinner with friends, tell them that you're doing a presentation at work or school and that you'd like to test out some content with them. Tell them the story or analogy and see if it makes sense to them. Tip number 3, mark up your script. Increase the font size of the main idea, underline key points, and put in all caps key words. When you do this, you start to think about how to vocally deliver your presentation. For example, if you have a confidence monitor, use this marked up script to help you remember to sound more lively, more conversational during your presentation. Tip number 4, practice with a clicker for slide deck presentations. Because if you don't, on the day of the presentation, you might forget to advance a slide. Don't let this happen to you. Learn from my mistake. One of the first big presentations that I ever did was in front of 50 geneticists, and I got tunnel vision. I was going through the bullet points in my head and completely forgot about the slideshow behind me. When I came to, I quickly clicked through 3 slides, and then the person in the front row, she raised her hand and she asked, "What are we skipping over?" My suggestion, face an imaginary audience when you practice. Don't face the computer. Tip number 5, record yourself using your phone. Hands down, this is the fastest way to improve your presentation. Listen to yourself as you're driving to work or answering emails. Learn the content by listening to yourself and also check for emphasis, check for pacing. How does it sound? Watch yourself and look for facial expressions and gestures. Do they distract from your presentation or do they reinforce your content? I get it. Watching and listening to yourself is not easy, but it gets easier every time you do it. I'm the one who is editing the video that you're watching right now. I see my bad habits. I'm aware of them and I can do them less moving forward. Now that you have my 5 tips, how to get started, put time in the calendar and stick to your schedule even as work piles on. If you want to improve, you've got to carve out this time for yourself. Spend less time stressing, more time practicing. To help others,
It's about how to prepare yourself for your next presentation. And since our next 30 minutes is for the practical sessions, as I know there are some students, those who are ready to present. If you are ready, you can start your presentation.